Breaking news from the stadium tonight as an anonymous fan foot the bill for 55,000 hot dogs, bringing that sweet tubed meat to everyone in attendance.
Free dogs! Yeah!
55,000 hot dogs? What does that even cost? While the identity of this Frankfurter philanthropist remains anonymous, their all-beefy generosity will go down in history.
The new Mega Millions. More to win means more to give. How you spend it is up to you. Yeah!
For game odds and details, visit sceducationlottery.com.
With so many options, why choose Arizona State University?
For me, the only online option was ASU because of the quality. Their faculty was really involved with their students and care about your personal journey. The dedication to my personal development from my professors, that's been extremely valuable to me.
Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online. That's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Calling All Creatures. I am your host, Lori, and tonight we have a really good podcast. I hope it's going to be very informative for those of you out there. I'm calling this one Black, White, and Stink All Over, and not meaning it in a bad way for Stink All Over, but we're going to talk about skunks. And, you know, people know skunks spray and they can smell, so hence the topic's name. But anyway, tonight I have Julie McLaughlin on with me, and she is the co-founder of Indiana Skunk Rescue, and she is hopefully going to impart some more wisdom and facts to all of us about skunks and living with them, and if you happen to encounter them and stuff like that. So, Julie, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad you were able to come on tonight and talk with me about skunks.
Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I thought it'd be really cool to talk about skunks. It's an animal, you know, like I said, that a lot of people don't really favor, unless, of course, you have the people, because you can get pet skunks. We'll talk about that, too. But, you know, so hopefully we can get some more information out to people, and maybe we can all learn a little bit more. I know I'm always up for learning more about things, so.
Good. Yeah, I really think they're probably the least liked wildlife, or they're at the bottom. You know.
Yep, I think.
And that is for sure.
Yep, I think between them and maybe opossums.
Really, yeah.
Yep. So anyway, well, why don't we just kind of start out, and I'll have you tell us maybe just a little bit about yourself. I mean, what drew you personally to wanting to work with skunks? I mean, was there some specific moment or some specific skunk in particular that kind of got you started in this?
Both is what made me. I'm the founder of Indiana Skunk Rescue, and I had always wanted a skunk. They always fascinated me. I always thought they were really cute, and if I would see them at a pet store, because they used to be at pet stores in Indiana, I would always, hold them, and I wanted one so bad. But I had miniature bull terriers, and terriers and skunks just are not going to mix.
No.
It doesn't matter, oh, my terrier is so wonderful. I'm sure they are. My terriers were wonderful. But DNA is DNA. You cannot change that.
Exactly.
And, they're not going to put up with a skunk, because a skunk plays the same way as when it's angry, and that body language is very confusing for some dogs, especially terriers. When a skunk plays, it puffs all up like it stuck its little paw in an electrical outlet, all of its hairs up, and it stomps and runs towards them and spins around and runs backwards and runs back towards them. And terriers are like, oh, you know what? You need to die. They don't understand. So, when my last terrier passed away, not that I wanted them to, but it happened to be skunk season. You can only buy skunks once a year. They're only available in like June and July. Skunks only breed once a year. So, I found a breeder, and I went and I purchased a skunk.
Nice.
Now, since I was like 14 years old, I've always done some kind of rescue or done something to help animals basically my whole life. I've done horse rescue, breed-specific dog rescue, and when I got this little skunk, there's not a whole lot of information about skunks. So he was very different, very, very different. He was very aggressive. He was not friendly. No matter how much I held him, everything scared him. I mean, things just were not right. When I went online and tried to ask, I'll be honest, I got blamed for it. You're doing this wrong. You're doing that wrong. And it's like, I'm not doing anything wrong. So to make a long story short, ended up taking him to the vet, ended up taking him to a specialist that she referred me to. And my skunk was born totally blind, which wasn't that big of a deal because skunks can't see very well anyway. So we just adjusted. Like when I wanted something, I would tap and then, he would come. But a lot of his problems was he was blind. I didn't know it, even though they can't see very well. So when I was going through all of that, and I realized there just wasn't very much help out there, especially not very nice help, I thought, you know what, I'm going to start a skunk rescue. So Rachel Miracle, she had got her skunk the same time I got mine. We became friends. We met through my skunk having issues on Facebook, the chat groups, and she come in with me to start Indiana Skunk Rescue. Unfortunately, because of COVID and different things, Rachel doesn't help very much. Like in the last 5 years, she's still on all my licenses and permits, and I hope someday she'll be able to come back and help like she did. But right now, she can't. Not that she doesn't want to. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, if I'm going to do domestic skunk, then I might as well do wild skunks. I don't hear of wild skunks needing help very often. Boy, was I wrong on that. I just didn't know. I help over 100 wild skunks a year and right around 100 domestic skunks a year.
Wow. When you stop and think about the numbers, and it's just, I mean, basically that's a lot every year.
It is a lot.
I don't think people realize the numbers when, I don't know if they just don't think about the fact that a lot of these rescues, or I shouldn't say a lot, but some rescues do a lot of their stuff, on their own by themselves. They don't have a lot of volunteers or a lot of other people that are helping them at their rescues because, and like you were saying, you have permits and stuff like that. So, it just kind of depends on what they can and can't do. But I don't think people realize just how much work it is. And they don't realize, I don't think, how many animals that, as like a single person rescue that you help out and take care of.
Yeah, it's astronomical. Like when I first started, I got my wildlife rehab license to where I'm licensed to do any mammal that the state of Indiana has. And I pretty much have done all of them. I've never done a bobcat, and I have not done a beaver. Everything else, I'm pretty sure, has been in my home. And see, that's another thing. Most of us, we don't have big facilities with, like you said, a lot of volunteers or paid staff. Some people do, but those are few and far between. The majority of us work out of our homes. So we're doing this in our living room and kitchen and our bedrooms and, and that's where all the animals are until they get moved outside, like when they're little babies, because they have to go to outdoor pre-release enclosures. Right. They can't just live in your house and then throw them outside.
Right. Right. That's not good.
Yeah. I was doing, deer, possums, raccoons, skunks, and then it got to be too much because, well, I'm old, fat, and crippled, and it's just like, this is a lot. So last year and this year, I just specialize in skunks. Now I have a couple subs, and they'll do some fawns and raccoons. I think we have 30-some raccoons, but they're not at my house.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's awesome.
And I'm just sticking with skunks here.
Uh-huh. Wow. I know, like I said, I don't think people realize just, sometimes the amount of work and it's funny because I don't know why, but I was just thinking about, I had a lady on not too long ago. She does hamster and some guinea pig rescue. But
that's what Pipsqueakery does.
Oh, yeah.
Here in Indiana.
Okay. So then you might know, I mean, even though these are little, like, hamsters and stuff, they have great big tubs. I mean, for them to have a decent habitat.
Right. Oh, yeah. And then you got the wheels and the food and the chewy toys, and then their enclosures and their bedding and
and these tubs
and water bowls and
and I know. And she was telling me when I was talking to her once that she has these tubs set up. I don't remember if it was like a separate room or her kitchen area or where they were all at, but she's like, yeah, when we're trying to change bedding and feed and take care of all of them, she's like, literally, I only have enough room to just kind of barely walk between the tubs.
Yes. My house is a maze right now.
Yeah.
It's so hot. I do have some. I have over 100, and everybody is in a 55-gallon tote, and they're in by their own litter. So, some totes have 6, some totes have 2 skunks in them. And it's just a maze of totes.
Yep.
And some of them could go outside right now, but it is so extremely hot. I'm hoping the weather will break. I mean, I have fans and everything, and I know they would be outside anyway, but skunks live under things. They like to dig tunnels, and it's cooler under. They can't do that in my outdoor enclosures because they would escape.
Right. Yep.
So I'm trying to hold off on putting them outside.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't blame you on that. I mean, I would too, because, you don't want them to get too hot. So, we've talked a little bit about why and how your skunk rescue got started. Why don't you explain to everybody out there kind of what your actual mission is at the rescue?
My mission is obviously to save skunks and to change people's perspective of skunks. That is like my main goal above all else. I do educational programs. I try to do as many as I possibly can. I've done 2 this week, plus this podcast. Yeah. Everybody is so afraid of skunks. I go to vending events, and I want people to love skunks. Or if you don't love them, at least respect them and get the correct perspective of what they actually are. Because I believe that our grandparents and great-grandparents and our parents, because, I'm 60, they all told us things about skunks that are not true, because as kids, we don't mind. And they didn't want us getting sprayed because they didn't want to deal with the smell. So I think they kind of over-exaggerated what skunks really were so that you would be afraid of them and leave them alone. Yeah. Maybe.
That sounds about what they would have done. Because I'm
not accusing them of anything, because they're not here to defend themselves, but I'm thinking maybe that's what they did.
But I mean, I'm right there with you. I'm about the same age, so
yeah,
I know what you're talking about. Yeah, there was a lot of different things they used to tell us. We're not going to get into it though, but
yeah. So I and most of it was false.
Yeah.
And everybody still just believes it. I mean, even if you Google it, it's on Google, and it's like, are you really? I mean, come on.
Right.
That's not right.
Right. Well, and now that we're talking a little bit about that, why don't you go ahead and just give us a little bit more information about skunks in general, like their diets, their habitats, lifespans, stuff like that. Just a little bit more information so people can kind of familiarize themselves a little bit more with them.
For wilds or domestics?
there's going to be a bit of a difference. Why don't we do because some people, I don't know how much people encounter them in the wild, but let's start out with the wild ones.
Okay. Wild skunks live everywhere. I mean, they live in the city, they live in the country, they live in suburb land. They're extremely docile. They really, really are. If you have a skunk living under your shed or under your porch or living anywhere on your property, or you're out in the woods taking a walk and you see a skunk, skunks can't see very well, okay, at all. All they're interested in is food. They could care less about you. Now, there's exceptions to every single rule. Always, always, there's going to be that one or two that ruins it for everybody with anything in life. But they will not come out and chase you down and spray you. They're not trigger happy like that.
Yeah.
Now, babies will spray faster than an adult will. If you catch a baby in a trap or you start messing with the baby, it's going to spray you faster because it hasn't figured out what dangers are really, really dangerous yet. But if you talk to them, like let's say you have some living underneath your deck, you can cut your grass, you can go out there and have picnics, barbecues, sit out there, sunbathe, do whatever you want. Those skunks are not going to come out and bother you, not at all. Unless you feed them, then they're going to come to you for food. But if you leave them alone, they will leave you alone. If they're in your shed, under your shed, you can still go out in your shed, get your lawnmower, get your gardening equipment, do anything that you want to. Skunks are prey animals. They're not predators. So they think you're going to kill them and eat them. So they don't chase you down. They're prey. They hide. They run. That's why they spray. They spray so they can take off running to get away. They're not going to run up to you and bite you or spray you. Then people are like, well, my dog gets sprayed all the time. Well, yeah, because your dog ran up to that skunk barking and carrying on. The skunk thought your dog was going to eat it. The skunk didn't run up to your dog and spray it. You know?
Well, yeah, that is true. I mean, I have never seen a skunk run up to just spray a dog. No, it doesn't happen.
It's the other way around, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And like skunks with chickens. People are like, oh, it's killing my chickens. No, it's not. Again, there's always exceptions to every single rule. But on a rule, skunks are not chicken killers. What happens is, and I'm not going to name species and call them out, something else kills your chicken. Then what happens is skunks can't see very well. They're lazy. They're slow. That species has eaten everything that it wanted to from the chicken. It leaves. The skunk wanders up and it eats. And then it gets caught. So it pays for a crime it did not commit, if that makes any sense.
Well, don't they? I think
eat eggs.
I was just going to say, don't they? Thieves. That's what I was just going to say. Don't they more so? They would go more so for the chicken eggs than they would, I think, for the chicken.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, they are egg thieves.
Yeah.
You know, everybody has extra eggs. At least around here, people are begging, to get rid of their eggs. So I think missing one or two shouldn't cost anything their life.
Yeah. Saying that, it reminded me of a story. I had a gentleman one time I got called out to, and for animal control, and he had chickens, and he thought the skunks were killing his chickens and like ripping their heads off. And
That's mean.
And I'm kind of looking at him and I'm like, well, why would they do that? I mean,
raccoons will too. They'll pop head. They'll do that.
Well, it was.
But usually it's mean.
It was owls. In this case.
Oh, wow.
Well,
okay.
Yeah, the owl would swoop down and try to grab the chicken, but it would, owl, hawk, whatever, it would swoop down and try to grab the chicken, but it would just get the head, and then as it was trying to take, so it was pulling the heads off. So
poor little chicken.
Yeah, so he had to put some, the things across and around to try to keep the raptors from going after his chickens. I was just like looking at him like, dude, I don't think the skunks are pulling their heads off. I just don't.
No.
They don't.
No.
They don't do that. As far as I know, they would go after the eggs, but
Yes.
yeah. So, yeah, it was just an interesting story. You reminded me of that with that.
That's the first time I've ever heard of birds of prey just pulling off heads.
Well,
Usually
it was
it's
just-
mean raccoons will, because they stick their little hands through,
Well-
and all they can grab is the head, because chickens are nosy, so they walk up to
Right.
see what's this raccoon doing.
Right. Well, in this case, it was, the raptor was trying to take the chicken for the meal, but like I said, it can only. So the weight of the chicken, they weren't be able to like pick up the weight of the chicken from just the head. So that's what was happening. Yeah, because he had fat chickens, and so
Yeah.
the chicken weighed
Yeah,
too much.
people are so afraid of them that the very first time it happened, I thought I was being pranked. You know how radio shows do those pranks on people?
Uh-huh.
And I get a call, and they say they're a 911 operator. And I'm like, okay. Well, there's some campers that are wanting to enjoy nature. True story. This has happened more than once. So there's a skunk family, and it is running their nature enjoyment. And will you please go and get the skunk family? I'm like, no. What?
I so believe this. I just really believe this.
But I ended up, I asked the 911 operator for the families, like, could I have their phone number, or could they have them please call me? And we talked it through, and they stayed for the weekend, and they were perfectly fine. But when you go camping, because of things like that, even if you enjoy something, please refrain from feeding any animal, whether it be a skunk, a bear, a raccoon, a fox, a cougar, whatever.
Great advice.
Please don't feed them, because then somebody else comes along and they don't think that's cute, and they're afraid, and it costs that animal their life. They pay with their lives.
Yep.
I personally don't see, I don't know, if it's hungry, feed it, but you can't, because
these people,
it could be a death sentence.
And people don't think, it's just like, I'm sorry, I don't want to go off topic, but I got to mention this. It's like these people going up to these wild bison in Yellowstone and getting gored, and I'm thinking, what's wrong with you? Why would you go near
It's awful. It's like, oh my.
Yeah, I'm like, why would you go near a 2,000-pound wild animal with horns? That makes no sense to me. And so, because of how many, I'm actually have scheduled a podcast. I think it's going to be in October. I'm having a bison expert on with me, because we're going to talk about bison and why you should stay away from them and some other things.
Right. Well, try to find that video on TikTok, not to digress or go off subject, but there's a video on TikTok that has went viral, and it looks like this little boy is probably 3 or 4, and his mother, it's at Yellowstone, is getting him to go up and pet this wild bison.
Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
It all ends out good, but that could have been so horrible.
Oh, yeah.
I was afraid to watch the video until I read the comments to make sure that I wasn't going to watch something horrible happen.
Right, exactly. That's crazy. Okay. All right, let's go back on topic now. Okay, so, so wild skunks. Oh, and that was, I wanted to say, too, with skunks, too, isn't it, unless they're, aren't they more nomads? I mean, they don't really stay in one place, do they, or do they? I mean, I know when they're having their young, they have dens and stuff like that, but don't they normally just kind of travel around? They don't stay too long in one place?
Yes, my phone's ringing off the hook right now with moms and babies. Will you please come get them? And my standard speech is, can you please, if you see the mom out with the babies, I'm begging you, can you live with it 2 or 3 more weeks? Because when she's bringing those mom and babies out, unless you're feeding her, remove all food sources, okay? Remember, they're lazy. And if you're feeding them with anything, it's going to stick around a lot longer, because why go hunting for food when it knows at 6 o'clock you're putting a plate of dinner out for it? Mm-hmm. So remove your bird feeders. Don't feed your birds. And I know that's horrible. I feed birds, and I have to do it every year over raccoons. No bird food, no cat food outside. Skunks cannot climb, So if you have feral cats, I'm not saying starve your cats, put it up on your deck railing, or put it on your table, your outdoor table, or anywhere up high. Skunks don't climb because they have claws like a cat and little bitty teeny tiny legs. That's why you never see them in a tree. Once she starts bringing babies out, she's going to take them farther and farther away. And within 2 or 3 weeks, she's going to leave with them. And you're never going to see her or those babies again unless she thought your house was the most awesome place to raise her babies at. If she's still alive, she'll come back next year and raise her family again. So when she leaves and you don't see them anymore, then you can fix, where she had made a den and close that up if you don't want her back next year.
Yep.
But that's why you never see a group or a pack or a herd of skunks. Unless it's a mother and babies, there's one. They're solitary and they're nomads.
Now, what about their diets? I mean, they eat a few different things. If I remember right, like insects, grubs. Of course, they do like cat food and stuff like that. But
yeah, the free meals, those are great. They eat absolutely everything. They're omnivores. So they're actually good to have around. Like if skunks did live in a herd, if you had a bunch of skunks living in your barn, that would be better than a bunch of cats, realistically. They kill mice, rats. They're immune to venom. So if you lived in a state that you had a problem with venomous snakes, they'll go into a snake nest and wipe all of those out.
Really? I didn't know they were...
all the grubs and bugs out of your yard. They eat everything. They're omnivores.
I did not know that they were immune to venom.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I mean, I knew possums. Is it possums I'm thinking of?
Probably.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, possums are the other one that is immune to venom. Interesting. I did not know that about skunks. See, I learned something new tonight.
Yeah, and they love bees. So, like, if you're a beekeeper, that skunks would probably get on your last nerve, but because they love honey and they also eat the bees. But yeah, they eat all insects, rodents, reptiles, roadkill, anything they can get their little short, tiny paws on.
Yeah, interesting. So, what about domestic skunks? I know people are like, what do you mean domestic skunks? Yes, people have pet skunks. What about the domestic skunks?
Yeah, they're not legal in very many states. They are legal here in Arizona, or Indiana. I'm sorry, I had you on my mind. They're not legal in your state to have as pets. But they're only legal in like 17 states. Every state has their own proper permits and licenses that you have to have in order to obtain them. So talking about how you can get a skunk, you need to check with your state Fish and Wildlife or Department of Natural Resources, DNR, to see if it's legal in your state and what you have to do to get one. For example, in Indiana, we can have anything, absolutely anything, with the proper permits and licenses. And with a skunk, you register it with DNR within 5 days of buying your skunk. They have to come from a licensed breeder. Nothing's allowed out to take it out of the wild and keep it as a pet. They come descented, and you have to have all the proper paperwork. You have to register it with DNR in order to have one as a pet. In Michigan, same thing. The only state that you can have a wild skunk in is Wyoming, if that is still true. I'm assuming it is. I haven't heard that it has changed. Every other state, they have to be from a licensed breeder, and you have to register them with your state. And in Michigan, you have to buy them in Michigan. You cannot import into the state of Michigan. Same thing with Pennsylvania. You cannot, like, nobody could adopt a skunk from me and take it to Michigan or take it to Pennsylvania. It has to be within that state.
Well, that's interesting.
Yeah, and what's really interesting is, okay, Michigan, for example, since it's a neighbor state, I know most of their laws.
Mm-hmm.
you can own a domesticated skunk. You cannot import it. It has to be bred and raised by a domesticated breeder within the state of Michigan. But Michigan wildlife rehabbers are not allowed to rehabilitate wild skunks. They die. So you can own a domesticated one, but it's illegal to help a wild one.
Okay, I'm sorry. I don't even know why that's making perfect sense to me right now, but just because that's just the way the world is. and there's a lot of things that don't make sense, but they happen. So
Right.
Yeah, I can't. I don't even know, but yeah. And it's interesting too that you can't import them from a breeder in another state either. I'm wondering why on that as well. I mean,
because they're a rabies vector species.
Well,
but then it even gets more weirder because, and I'm not jogging Michigan. I mean, I have a lot of Michigan skunk owner people that I like a lot. It's just they're not every state has its own laws, and some of them are really different.
Well, you're talking to an ex-Michigander, so we can talk about it. Because I'm originally from Michigan, born and raised.
Okay, so Michigan has rabies pretty bad in certain areas.
Yeah.
And that is why you cannot rehab any wild skunks. It's because of rabies. And, it's sad because they're little babies, they don't have rabies, but there's no cure for rabies. And, so I on one hand, I get it. On the other hand, it's absolutely horrible. But you have to keep them in Michigan that does have rabies. But like over here in Indiana, knock on wood, we don't have rabies that bad. Yeah. So it seems like it would be safer to get one from here than there, but I don't know. I
was thinking either way. I mean, both states are requiring like permits and licenses for breeders to do this with the skunks. I mean, I don't know how different, because I don't know, the regulations for each state, but I don't know how much different the regulations would be between, Michigan and Indiana for the skunk breeders. But yeah, you would think that, I mean, I'm just saying, you would think that they would have to kind of have the same standards as...
They do. It's very, very similar.
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting. And like you said, Indiana does have less rabies than what Michigan does. So it's interesting how states, do their laws and stuff like that and their restrictions on different things. So it's interesting to know that.
And there has to be a reason. Yeah. Just like when they say don't use your hair dryer in the shower, there's a reason. So, maybe something happened. Maybe somebody imported some skunks and they ended up being rabid. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I just know that's their law. And the same thing with Pennsylvania. Then it's either North or South Carolina. Their law is this one's hilarious. You are allowed to purchase, you can have a domesticated pet skunk. It has to be purchased within the state. You're not allowed to breed domesticated skunks in the state.
Wait.
Uh-huh. You heard it right.
Okay, I can't.
So how are you supposed to get one?
Oh my gosh.
You have to purchase them from the state. You're not allowed to breed any in the state, but they're legal to have. So that was their way of just getting rid of domesticated skunks.
I was going to say, what are you supposed to do? Wait until you see a mom of really young babies and go out and snatch the babies and raise them?
No, you're not allowed to take them out of the wild.
And then you're not allowed to take them out of the wild. Okay, then. All right. Well, yeah, that pretty much does away with any ownership of any kind of skunk in that state.
Yeah. Now, the governor of Tennessee a few years ago, he was in hot water because he had domesticated skunks as pets when he was little. He loves them. So he was going to make them legal in Tennessee. It's illegal to own a domesticated skunk in Tennessee. And he thought it was ridiculous. And he was going to pass a law. He was going to make it legal. That was one of his missions because he had them when he was a kid, loved them. And the veterinary board told him, fine, go ahead. But if anyone gets rabies, it's on you. So he buckled, and no, you can't have them as pets.
So again, I understand that whatever the case may be, obviously a skunk doesn't get a rabies shot like a dog or a cat would, but the Fish and Game do put out food baits with rabies vaccinations or what stuff in them for the skunks to eat to help prevent them from getting rabies. So why couldn't that be done with a domesticated skunk?
Exactly. Now, I vaccinate everything that comes on this property for distemper, parvo, lepto, rabies, everything, just like you would your cat or dog.
Okay.
The problem is, like, almost all wildlife, except possums, because their body temperature is so low, but almost all wildlife is considered rabies vector species. And all that means is they're more prone to get rabies than your dog or cat, because your dog and cat has vaccines available, whereas wildlife does not have vaccines available. So
right.
Rabies vector species means they're more prone to have rabies because there's no vaccine available. Now, it has been proven that the vaccine works on skunks. It does. I've talked to the drug companies.
You want to hear something interesting? You know, veterinarians won't give wolf and wolf hybrids the rabies vaccination either because they say whatever it is, they don't think it would work. And I talked to one of the manufacturers, I think from Rabovac, and I asked them about that too. And I said, "Why? What's up with that?" Because I was curious, and he said, "Why wouldn't it work on a wolf when a dog comes down? It's a canine. It's exactly. A canine." So yeah, he kind of laughed about that veterinarians, but they argue about that. So I'm imagining same thing here.
No, it works, and like my veterinarian knows that it works. Most of the skunk, there's not very many veterinarians that see skunks. They have to be an exotic veterinarian, not
right.
just your regular dog and cat veterinarian. And then that exotic has to want to see skunks. So if you do have a domestic one, it's hard to find a vet.
Yeah.
But they do work, and the drug companies know that they work. I've called them, I've talked to them, and their response was, it is not financially in our best interest to FDA approve the rabies vaccine. And so they won't. They said it would cost millions of dollars to get, whether they know it works or they know it doesn't work, they know it works. But if it did or didn't, they have to get it FDA approved. And it would cost millions of dollars, and there's not enough domestic skunk owners to make it worth their interest. There's a guy right now petitioning the drug companies and the FDA to get a raccoon vaccine so that they don't have to die if they bite or scratch somebody. Yeah,
because that just happened in, was it New York? That gentleman, he had, I think it was a raccoon and a squirrel, and I can't remember whichever one it was that bit the person, but number one,
he got the squirrel.
Was it the squirrel that bit? So,
I don't know. It was he had a raccoon and DNR come, but you know, on that story, I'm not dogging Peanut or those people. I don't know those people. I felt horrible. It would be horrible. I couldn't even imagine that. I hope I'd never ever have to go through something like that.
What upsets me, though,
I had heard that they had asked him to get proper. Maybe I'm wrong, but they had been asking him, to get the proper licenses and permits, and he just hadn't gotten around to it yet. I heard President Trump was going to say that, that wasn't going to happen anymore, but I haven't heard anything else about that.
Yeah.
But it is horrible, because if they bite or even scratch and break skin, then you're supposed to kill them and test them for rabies. I mean, it is a federal law.
Well, the thing is squirrels are not a rabies vector animal.
No.
So, That's not going to get into this whole interesting twist, but that's what I always found kind of interesting with the fact that squirrels, mice, those types of small animals, even if they did contract rabies, that virus would kill them so quickly that there's no way that they'd be able to ever pass it to another animal. But
so why did they kill Peanut?
That's what I'm saying. That's where I was mad.
Why did you do that?
Yeah, that's what I was mad at. But that interesting twist is, how come bats can get that virus and it doesn't take them out as quickly as it does those other smaller animals? That's an interesting twist with the rabies virus, I think. But anyway, neither here nor there. But yeah, no, I was mad about the whole Peanut thing because being animal control, I know squirrels are not a rabies vector. And I could not believe that they put that animal down.
Oh, it was heartbreaking. I mean, absolutely. I watched his videos on TikTok, and I mean, it was absolutely devastating. Just devastating. And how they were treated. It was just, it was horrible. It was horrible.
Yep, it was. It was crazy. I was really upset about that one, just because I know.
Over a squirrel. Come on.
I know.
Now watch. Now my DNR is going to get mad at me. That, I love you guys, but seriously, that was a little much.
We're not promoting that kind of stuff. We're just saying that we know enough about this kind of stuff to question why this happened. Yeah, I'm not promoting that kind of, but anyway, yeah. So sorry if anybody's upset about what we were just talking about. I don't mean to hurt feelings, but I was upset because I know how that stuff works. Believe me, I know how that stuff works. After having a rabies epidemic in my area for a year, I was constantly in touch with the people that dealt with rabies. So anyway, getting off topic a little bit, but so again, about domesticated skunks and stuff, obviously they do make pretty good pets. What else? I know we've talked quite a bit about domesticated skunks and stuff, but what else should potential owners know before they adopt one? I mean, obviously they need to check with the correct authorities to see if they can even have one where they live. But on top of that, what would they be kind of looking at if they were to adopt a pet skunk in, like, the care of it and, just some of the basic necessities that they'll probably need for it?
Their diet. Their diet is really the roughest thing. There's no food that you can just buy and throw in a bowl and feed a skunk. I hand prepare every single meal for the skunks. I feed on paper plates because that's just easier, and they have to have a certain amount of protein, vegetables. They love dairy products, and they have to have taurine. They have to have calcium, so you have to make sure all of that is in their diet. They eat, when they're babies, they eat every 6 hours. Then as they get older, it goes to 3 times a day, and then they can eat twice a day. And those meals are prepared. It's not to where you just a dog or a cat pull her in a bowl and walk away. So their diet is the roughest thing. Second roughest thing, all of my skunks, knock on wood, have always used a litter box. Some skunks won't use a litter box. And even if they do use a litter box, they always go in a corner. They will not just use the restroom in the middle of your floor. It's in a corner. Well, one skunk may pick out 5 corners in your house that it's going to use the restroom in. You may want the litter box in your bathroom. That's laughable. It's not going to happen. And you're never going to win. I mean, you just, wherever they go to the bathroom at, stick a litter box there. And you may have 5 litter boxes around your house, or maybe only 1. Don't know. All skunks have different personality. They're not like German Shepherds where, they're a lot alike. Skunks vary, and some of them absolutely refuse. They will not use a litter box, which would be horrible. So you have to think about that. If you want to go on vacation, there isn't places, unless you're a veterinary clinic or you have a really good friend, you can't leave an automatic feeder out for them like you could a cat or even a dog. They don't take skunks. Rescues cannot take skunks in because they have to have the proper licenses and permits to have them on their property. The only place would be if you had your vet that's seen your skunk, if they did boarding and you trusted them to keep it, or if you had a trusted friend to come over twice a day, every day, and take care of it. So that makes it difficult. Skunks come in 3 different personalities, and this makes some of the other rescues mad at me, but I'm very honest about it. They're like cats. They are the sweetest creatures you have ever met in your entire life. You will think at night that their halo comes out and these big wings grow. They're the best things you'll ever find in your life. Second personality, they're only like that when they feel like it. So if you're wanting to sit down and you're feeling bad or depressed, or you're wanting to watch a movie and you want to hold your skunk, maybe you can, maybe you can't. It just depends on its mood, and you only do that when it wants to. Third personality, I call them spawns of Satan. And you don't mess with them, period. You don't touch them. They own the house. They live there. I guess they're making the mortgage payment and everything. You feed them and you leave them alone. And you have to be prepared for that when you get these little babies, because as babies, you have no idea what the personality is going to be like. You get your baby in June or July, and their little personality comes out in usually like October, November.
Oh, I love that third one, spawn of Satan.
Oh. Yeah, I've had some spawns. My very first skunk was. I mean, which was good, because then I learned how to deal with it and what to do and read body. I'm an expert at body language. I mean, he taught me everything I needed to know about body language.
Right.
He was a tremendous help.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Wasn't real super pleasant, but he was a tremendous help.
He was an incredible teacher.
Yes, he was. He was.
Well, I'm kind of glad you went through those 3 different personalities, because I was actually just going to kind of ask what are some, common health problems or behavioral issues that you might see if you have a pet skunk, so people might be a little more prepared.
The problem, skunks don't have an off switch to their stomach, and their stomach's only, when they're full grown, about the size of a walnut. So they don't eat tons. They will eat until they vomit and then continue eating.
Oh my God.
So when you're eating, they're super cute, and they beg for food like cats or dogs do. They're highly intelligent. They know their names. They come when they're called. Mine give kisses. Mine sleep in bed with me. They follow you around the house. They want your food. So, and they love junk food. They're junk food junkies. And people overfeed them because they're so cute and adorable. And it wouldn't hurt to give them one potato chip every now and then, one French fry if you went out to dinner and brought it home every now and then. But people feed them half a bag of French fries, give them part of their hamburger, and then before you know it, this little skunk that should weigh 7 pounds weighs 20. It can barely walk. And now it has congestive heart failure or kidney failure or problems with its liver because you've let it get obese. And it's super easy to do. And I understand how it happens, but that is the number one death of domestic pet skunks is obesity.
Happens with chihuahuas too.
Yeah, and then I always feel bad because I'm so fat that I put this poor skunk on a diet. It's like it makes me feel horrible. Then it's like, you know what? I can use the toilet. You can't even get in a litter box. You're so fat. So, yeah.
It's like, hey, buddy, how about we have matching treadmills? I'll get you a little skunk one, and I'll
Here
get on. I can see it now. The 2 of you walking along. So, during the time you've been rescuing, what has been like the most common reason that skunks end up needing to be rescued?
The number one reason, last year, I had over 100 skunks. I always end up with over 100. Every single one but one litter was over chickens on the wild side. On the domestic side is people move. They're moving to a state that they're not allowed in. I get a lot of that. I get a lot of, I just can't take care of it anymore. This is too much. Preparing its meals, and it's too much. And then what is a real shocker, one of the spouses is highly jealous of the skunk. My husband loves the skunk more than me, so it has to go. Or my wife pays more attention to the skunk than she does me, so it's me or the skunk. That happens a lot.
I can see that.
It's jealousy.
Yeah, I can see that. Had it happened with dogs and stuff. I think I've only had, I can say out of all the times, I've only had a couple people actually tell me the truth about why they were turning in their dog. And the one lady was so honest, I didn't even know what to say to her, because literally her husband had passed away. They were his dogs. She, to put it nicely, did not like the dogs, and she didn't want them. So they came to me.
I've had that happen. People pass away, and the person, well, actually, skunks bond with one person and they tolerate everybody else. That's another thing about skunks, because they are solitary animals. And sometimes they bond with a couple people and tolerate everybody else. Sometimes they'll bond to one person or two people, and they will not tolerate anybody else. So I have had them turned into the rescue, whereas my wife's skunk, she passed away. The skunk hates my guts, or vice versa.
Yep.
But that's only happened a few times. But usually it's moving and jealousy. I mean, I've had grown men lay on my kitchen floor crying. Because that was their dream animal. They finally got one, and I've asked, you know what, pay less attention to it, you know? Don't hang out with it when your wife's around or your husband's around, you know?
Right.
Kind of lay off on the attention, but I think the damage was already done.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, minds were made up.
Yep. It's like, nope, that's it, I'm done. Yeah. Yeah, that's too bad.
My husband would get a big surprise if he did that. He would not like the choice, but, you know. Speaking of honesty, yeah, he would not like the outcome of that choice.
I understand, because I'd be like that with my dogs. It'd be like, yeah, no. I don't know what to tell you. My dogs come first.
I don't either.
Yep, you gotta love it. So what happens if someone was out, you know, camping or just whatever, just happened to have a situation where they find like a wild skunk kit, that's alone or injured. I hate it sometimes when people do this. I can understand injured, but just because you maybe see it alone, I don't know how mama skunks are with their kids, but I know like opossums, if one falls off the back, that possum ain't coming back for it. But if someone finds something like that, what should they do and how should they handle it?
Well, so many people that's going to be listening to this are like, you have rabies really bad. It's just not like that here. Skunks usually, babies, stay with their mother. So if you do not see a mother around, if babies of any species come up to you, like they're chasing you down, they need help. They're coming to you for food. They're coming to you for help. So in those incidences, if you do not see a mother anywhere and they are running towards you, they're following you, they need help. So what I tell people to do is get a box, put a towel in the bottom of it. If you have gloves, please put gloves on. And when you walk up to them with confidence, okay, this is where people get sprayed. You cannot hesitate. You cannot be afraid. You cannot think, oh, is it going to spray me? Because it will. Walk with confidence. And I tell them to pick them up by the little tippies of their tail, because they're all going to throw their tails up in the air. Don't grab them around the waist, because they can swing around and bite you, and then they die. Pick them up by the tippies of their tail very gently, put them in the box, and give them to a wildlife rehabilitator in your area that sees skunks.
Good to know, to pick them up. I never would have thought to pick them up by the tip of the tail. Something new I learned
Because
again.
your instinct is either to scruff them like a mother cat, would, or to just scoop them up by their bellies.
Yeah.
But if you do that, you have a height, they can swing around and bite you, and then they have to be euthanized. But they'll stick that little tail straight up in the air.
Yeah.
And I don't mean grab the tail and jerk it. I mean just by the very tippy with 2 fingers, your first finger and your thumb, pick it up very gently and set it in the box. And quickly, so you're not dangling it in the air by its poor little tail. But, just very gently and quickly pick it up and set it in the box.
And don't swing it. It doesn't need to be swung.
Yeah, don't swing it. No. Very easy, one smooth little motion. And then that keeps the risk down of getting bit.
Yeah. Yep. Good advice. So I was thinking, I was kind of thinking, if you have gloves and stuff, maybe you would have a bigger, thicker towel handy or something too. You could maybe use to keep them from,
You're going to get sprayed if you do that.
Yeah. That's
you
exactly.
throw a towel over them, or you grab them or anything, they're going to get sprayed. People say, "Oh, babies can't spray." Yes, they can. When my husband come home tonight, he's like, "Oh, so somebody sprayed," and started laughing. Yes, it did. Yep. And it's only a little 6-week-old baby. My whole house stinks right now. It doesn't last as long, and it doesn't smell as skunky. It smells more like burnt onions. And then the older they get, the more potent and powerful and plentiful it gets.
Yep. That makes sense. So, all right. Well, that makes good to know. If ever encounter a skunk and you need to put it in a box, just by the tippy of the tail with the 2 fingers. Good information to have.
Not an adult. I'm talking about little babies.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about that one. I'm like, I've seen some, and not saying I haven't seen some pretty good-sized adult skunks.
Yeah, no, let's not do the tippy tail thing with adults. But, I'm talking about little bitty orphan babies.
Yeah, because I did say kids.
Oh, Mommy. Yeah.
Yeah, please don't pick up an adult skunk by the tail.
No, because it will swing around and get you.
Yeah.
But the little babies will not.
It's a good thing you said that. I could see someone out there actually trying to grab an adult skunk by the tippy of the tail.
Yeah, and then calling me. I got sprayed and bit. Yeah, no, babies. Just babies.
Just if you see an injured adult skunk, you may want to call someone to help. I'm just saying.
Yes.
Yeah. Don't try to pick up an adult skunk on your own.
No, never. Skunks, actually, domestics try to bite me all the time. They really do. But wilds, rarely. Even the adults, they rarely try to bite me, but they do have some big teeth. So I would not just go, even with, I don't care, I guess if you have the big bird gloves on that come up to your shoulders,
Yeah. Really thick leather.
Yeah. But, they can bite through leather gloves.
Yeah. Huh.
They would have to be like the big raptor gloves or something. Then you could safely pick up a wild skunk. But
yeah, I guess that would make sense if they're like the raptor gloves, because obviously you got to have that type so the claws of the raptor don't go through.
Yeah, because a skunk can go right through leather gloves.
Okay. I thought a lot of I guess I'm thinking more like with just like the smaller falcons. I see a lot of just like the heavier leather gloves with a lot
right.
of those.
No, I'm talking about like what people wear for eagles.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep. Exactly.
They can't go through. At least they haven't ever went through
Yeah.
any of that. But what I do for adults, well, it depends on how sick and stuff they are. Because again, skunks are extremely docile, and if they're injured and they're not feeling very well, a lot of times I can just set a box really close to it and just take my hand and like roll it into the box, pick the box up and go. Other times I use a net and I get it in the net and then put it in, you know, a cage or whatever I have and put it in that. And like as far as cages, a lot of people love their live traps. And with those, if you just walk up slowly and talk to it, skunks, again, are very docile. I cannot say that enough. Spraying is not the very first thing they're going to do. And read their body language. If they puff all up in the cage, most of the time they're just sleeping. They don't really care to be in there. They just go to sleep. Probably a stress, factor. They just usually sleep. Walk up very slowly, watch their body language. I open up the trap door. I take a brick and I stick it under the trap door and just walk away. That's it. Just walk away. That skunk may come out in 5 minutes or 5 hours. Not like raccoons or foxes to where they just bolt out of the cage as fast as they can. Skunks don't do that. It could take 5 minutes or 5 hours before it wanders on out of the live trap. So make sure you prop that door open with something, or it's going to go forward and then go backwards and then snap it right back down in their face.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, raccoons are interesting to release. I had a system for it. I had like a little bungee strap I could hook on the little hook and then I could stand behind the trap, because you just never kind of know with a raccoon if they might try to come back at you, because they're mean. They're mean.
They are.
They are.
I no longer release raccoons from traps because I did one as a favor for an older lady, and it's like, sure, I'll come get it and I'll go release it. And I stop by and I get my son, and we go and to release it. My son is 6'6", and he played football. So even though he's that big, I mean, he can run. He can really, really run. I can't. I'm old, fat, and crippled, seriously. So I'm used to letting skunks go. I open up that trap door. That raccoon wanted me dead. I turn around. My son is gone. Gone.
Oh, no.
I get the car and I'm like, are you kidding me? And he's like, well, I thought you would run. And it's like, I can't run. I mean, I'm physically unable to run. And then after that, it's like, you know what? No. You call, there's Trapper Tom that I work with. He'll let him out for you. Maybe, obviously, he can run better than me, or he has some kind of magic trick to it. But no, because they can be, I love raccoons. Oh my gosh, they are so cute. But when they're in a trap, they get very angry.
Oh, yes, they do.
Yeah, and skunks don't. They just don't really care. Well, they just go to sleep.
I can't say they don't.
I guess this is what I'm doing now.
I have had skunks stamp and hiss at me as I'm walking up to the trap, because they're in that trap and they see, and I'm trying to, and I'm walking slow, and like I said, I would have a blanket or something in front of me to help, kind of in case they did spray. But they would just stamp their little feet, and I'd be like, okay, and then they'd stamp their little feet. And I'd be like, well, I'm trying to, you have to pick you up and take you. But even though they would stamp their feet and some would kind of do the little hissy thing, I never did get sprayed, because I was going up to them slowly and cautiously and kind of talking. Right. So they didn't, get too freaked out to spray me. But man, raccoons, I had a system down for them. If I could, where I would release them. I would have, like, if there was a bush or something that was kind of overhanging, or a fence or something. I'm just saying, or a fence or something where you could kind of put the front of that trap where you're going to open up the door. And I had a bungee, and I would hook it onto that trap, and then I would stand behind the trap and pull the trap door open, and then usually the skunk would shoot straight out, or not skunk, the raccoon would shoot straight out. But yeah, I did try to find things to kind of keep it going straight out so it couldn't come back over that trap at me, because they are me. I mean,
I would have known you before I let mine one out, because I didn't know. I was just stupid. I thought they would be, free and just run off.
I'm from Michigan. Yeah. They hunt them up there with their coonhounds, and a raccoon will drown a dog. So they are mean. Yeah. Yeah, I knew a guy that had coonhounds, and he hunted raccoons, and he told us that he literally had it was a good sized raccoon, but the raccoon ran out onto like a log, and the hound went out there after the raccoon, and the raccoon was trying to drown his dog. So,
well,
I mean, obviously the raccoon's being hunted,
the dog
but
was trying to kill the coon.
Well, yeah, no,
I mean, it was self-defense.
It was, but I'm just saying, it was just an example of a raccoon can take a coonhound down. Like, they're mean.
It would have no problem taking me out. I mean, it's just, I'm fair game. It's like,
exactly. That's why. Yeah, that's why I had my little system.
My son was safe, so that's good.
Well, yeah, that's awesome. Way to go, Mom! You kept your son safe. The funny thing is my son is about the same, like 6 foot, 6'1", and I could probably see him doing the same thing your son did. And
he just assumed, I think he forgot. I mean, he's seen it, and self-preservation. I mean, he took off and thought I would be right behind him, and that's just not how it went down.
That's great.
Because he'd do anything in the world for me. I mean, he's absolutely awesome, but that's just a funny story.
That was a funny story.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, we're coming up on the end here. Just another question or so. What's one piece of advice that you would like every skunk owner or someone who would find a skunk to kind of know?
They're not terrors. They're nothing to be afraid of. It's old wives' tales that's got everybody petrified of these little tiny docile creatures that all they're trying to do is live like you and I are. All they're wanting to do is find some food. They could care less about you. They're not going to run up and spray you. That is the biggest thing. They're not going to run across the yard and spray you or attack you. They're great to have around. And again, I can't say it enough. They're just little docile creatures that could care less about you other than food.
Yep.
They're not as bad as what their reputation is. I mean, they die just because they stink, and that's not really fair. Right. And they only spray when they're threatened. They just don't go around spraying to spray. They don't even like it anyway. Like my domestic skunks, I get sprayed, not very often, every now and then, and it's always babies that get me. If I get sprayed and I come in the house, my domestic skunks get mad. I mean, they are mad when they smell that spray. I don't know if they don't like it or if they think danger's around, because I'll have to talk to them. Hey, it's me, it's mommy, it's fine, it's mommy, everything's fine, because it really upsets them.
Mm-hmm. I wonder if that's... Well, and so with your domestic ones that you have and stuff in the house, I mean, obviously they're usually solitary animals. So then are the ones that you have domesticated in the house, do they kind of group up a little bit more than what they would out in the wild?
Well, for some people, and I envy those people so much, like my friend Heather, all the old like crippled skunks and skunks that are really super old. Or Heather has been wonderful, and she takes them for the rescue so that I have more room, because I don't believe in having tons of skunks here. That's ridiculous. Everybody needs their own care and their own time with me, and unfortunately, all my skunks hated each other. They did not like each other at all. Kid and Olivia would tolerate each other. Diana hated skunks and cats. Flower did not like other skunks. So it just depends on the skunk. Heather has 7, and they all run together. They all sleep together. They all love each other. I wasn't fortunate in that happening. I kept a baby this year, and I'm hoping Sylvia likes it. Fingers crossed that they can be best friends. I haven't introduced them yet. But it just depends on the personality of the skunk on whether they like each other or not.
I was just because you were saying, you know, how they got mad when they smelled the other skunk spray. I'm wondering if that's why, because they don't care for other skunks as much.
Maybe. I just always thought maybe it was they didn't like the smell, or since skunks only spray when there's danger, and domestic skunks have no idea they can't spray. They don't know their scent glands have been removed.
Right.
And if they thought, since they smelled it, there was danger around, and it made them upset.
Right, and that would make sense too. Interesting. It'd be interesting to, if you ever figure it out, you'll have to let me know.
Yeah, I will.
All right, so one last question. How can people help, either by supporting you or by trying to coexist a little better with skunks that are out there?
Yeah, coexisting, if you could just leave them alone, remove your food source, they'll move on. Unless you're feeding them, and that's with any wildlife, it's going to move on to someplace else. They're going to move from food source to food source to food source. So if you just leave them alone, remove your food source, they'll move on. I'm sorry, I forgot your 2-part question.
Oh, that's okay. The other part was, how can people kind of help out supporting you and your work as well? Can you give out your contact information or website or whatever you want to give out for if people want to donate and stuff?
Yeah, I run Indiana Skunk Rescue. My website is indianaskunkrescue.com. There's a GoFundMe on there. I also have Venmo to donate. Everything I do comes out of my own pocket or donations. Wildlife rehabilitators in Indiana do not get paid one single penny. We have to get special permits and licenses and follow the rules and regulations, and we get inspections. But it's basically a voluntary job with DNR. They do not pay for absolutely anything. So it all comes out of our own pockets. And please don't look at my GoFundMe and say, well, she's raised $10,000. Okay, that's what I've raised since 2018. I've never started a brand new GoFundMe. That is every penny that's been donated through GoFundMe since 2018.
Good to know.
Yeah. And it costs me like $2,500 just to vaccinate every year, because I do make sure everyone's vaccinated for rabies, distemper, parvo, lepto, all of that before they're released back into the wild.
Oh, good. And I'll go ahead and put a link up to your rescue on my Facebook page for the podcast also. So if people want to go from mine to yours, they can very easily. Well, Julie, I really appreciate you coming on tonight and giving us all this really great info about skunks, both wild and domestic. Like I said, I learned several new things tonight, and hopefully the audience that listens in learned some new things about skunks also. And learn to coexist with them just a little bit better, because like Julie said, they're not going to run up and attack you. And seriously, I'll be honest with you guys, if a skunk was to run up and attack you, you definitely need to call, because that means there's something wrong with that skunk. Because, yeah, they don't do that.
No, they don't do that. No, if you live in a rabid state, then yeah, go get shots, dude, because there's something horribly, horribly, horribly wrong if that happens.
Yep.
With any wildlife.
Yep.
Except, I guess, when you're letting raccoons out of traps. But if you're just walking, or yeah, they don't just run up and attack you. And also, one last thing, if anybody has any questions, and it's like, oh, well, she didn't cover that, and I've always wanted to know, feel free, call me. My phone number's on my website. That's what I'm here for. Shoot me a text message. Send me an email. I'm more than happy to answer your questions about skunks. I want everybody to feel comfortable with them. And if you don't love them like I do, at least tolerate them.
Right. And I know we, excuse me, I want to throw just one last little thing out there too. I know we, mentioned throughout the podcast tonight about rabies vector animals. And in case you don't know what that means, it just means that animal is a little bit more susceptible to having the rabies virus and passing it on to other animals through their saliva, biting, or even if they were to lick their paw and then scratch you, it can be transmitted as well off of their paw if you have open wound or if they scratch you and make an open wound. But there's two different types, just so you guys do know about this. There's two different types of rabies out there an animal can get. It's the dumb rabies, and it is the one where they attack. Dumb rabies, if you see not only a skunk, raccoons will do it, a fox, they kind of stagger around like they don't know what they're doing. They might walk around in circles. They might fall over on their sides. It's like they've lost their senses. You also don't see animals with rabies eat a lot because it affects that eating and drinking and stuff like that as well. And then you have the aggressive rabies, which literally, if they have that, they can run up and just literally attack you out of nowhere with no warning. So, and I don't want to get morbid, but if you do happen to have a firearm on you and you have to shoot that animal, do not shoot it in the head, because that's what the lab needs to test, is the brain for the rabies. And you want that test done because you've got to know whether or not, you're going to have to get those shots. But more than likely, if it runs up and attacks you, it's probably got rabies, and if it does bite you or something, you will probably have to get those shots. So,
and then also with rabies, make sure all your listeners know that with dumb rabies, distemper mimics rabies to a T. Okay,
Yep.
Their symptoms are exactly alike. So 9 times out of 10, well, almost 100% of the time in Indiana, that it is distemper. It is not rabies. It is distemper. They mimic each other to a T. So you can't see a skunk or a raccoon or a fox or something stumbling around and think, or going in circles, oh, it has rabies. It very well could have distemper. You don't know until you get it tested.
Yep. We see a lot of distemper in the coyotes and stuff out here. And yes, they do. It does mimic rabies in that sense. They do stumble around and act the same way. But yeah, you would have to literally get it tested. And that's why I'm saying if you do have to, whatever reason, shoot that animal, do not shoot it. Yep, because you got to have it tested. So make sure. And if someone can't get there right away to collect that animal, like animal control or vet or whoever, you need to get that animal on ice. Whether you put it in an ice chest on ice, or maybe you have an outdoor freezer you don't use for anything, maybe whatever. But you need to keep it cool so that the specimen sample will stay viable for them to be able to test.
Yeah, no, they told me to put it in the refrigerator, not the freezer.
If you put refrigerator is better because with us, because we only, our stuff had to go 3 hours away. And so we couldn't just run it up to the lab. We had to FedEx ship it and stuff. So it did have to be frozen. And then usually by the time it got there, it had thawed out. And we packed it with dry ice too, to keep it. So,
But it's very important that people know distemper mimics rabies. Rabies mimics distemper.
Yeah. Yep. Yes, it can.
People call and they're like, "Oh, the skunk is rabid. The skunk is rabid," and it's just temper.
Yep.
Or people think that every skunk in the world carries rabies. I don't know where that came from. That is not true. Every skunk in the world does not carry its own special kind of rabies. That's not true.
In fact, you'll find out that a lot of times it's cross variants between you'll have like a variant of fox rabies that you'll find in bats or skunks, or you might find raccoon variant in skunks or bats. It just kind of it just depends. There are different variants, yes.
Yeah, because any mammal can get it. It's basically mammal rabies. No matter what variant it is, any mammal, including us, can get it.
Yeah, and we as mammals really don't want to get it because there, as of yet, no cure for rabies. It will kill you eventually. They have had success with, I think it's 2 or 3 people where they had to induce them into comas for quite a period of time. And then once they did come back out of the coma, they beat the rabies, but they literally had a lot of issues brain-wise and stuff. They had to relearn how to do a lot of stuff over again and things like that. So
it's scary. I mean, it is very scary. I mean, that's my biggest fear, because you see somebody that runs the biggest skunk rescue in the United States dies of rabies, what that would do to skunks. I mean, that is like my biggest fear. It's like, oh, please, God, don't do that to the skunks,
Yeah. So anyway, just a little bit more information out there for you guys on kind of the rabies thing, just so you're aware of what to kind of be on the lookout for and what you kind of need to do if you do encounter something like that. But for the most part, if that skunk's not acting abnormally and, it's just acting normally, it's fine. Just leave it alone and it'll go away.
Yes, it will.
So, all right, Julie, well, I'm going to let you, we're going to end the podcast pretty much. I'm just going to go ahead and announce my next couple of guests I have coming up. But I really appreciate you being on tonight. And I know, being back in Indiana, you're a bit ahead of us in time. So you're perfectly welcome to jump off and go do whatever you need to do for your night. And I, again, appreciate you giving us all the information you gave us on skunks and domestic and wild. So now people have more information.
Perfect. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
Oh, you're very welcome. And if you figure that one thing out, let me know.
I will.
All right. Well, you have a good one, Julie.
You too.
All right. Bye now.
Bye.
All right, everybody. So Julie just jumped off there. And I'm going to go ahead. There's a couple things I know I'm a little bit over on time, but there's actually a couple things I kind of would like to talk about before I do jump off for the evening, and I'm sorry I'm keeping you guys a little later. First off, it's been all over in the news and on Facebook. And many of you that are in the rescue world have probably heard about what happened with Michaela Raines, Save a Fox Rescue's founder. It's horrible that happened. I cannot express how sad it is that people felt the need to bully her to the extent that she just finally, and as her husband put out in the video, she did have some mental issues and stuff like that she was dealing with, and she had autism, a touch of autism and stuff. And it's really sad that people out in the world bullied her to the point that she decided to end her own life. People, you've got to be better than that. Especially if you people are in the rescue world, how could you do that? You care about animals, but you don't care about other humans? How does that work? On top of which, why? If you didn't like what she was doing or what was going on, fine. That's fine. You do not need to express your opinion about everything, everybody. I don't understand what is going on in this world nowadays between the politics and the rescues and everything else. It's horrible. People are being horrible to each other. Everybody is bad-mouthing each other. You're turning on each other. Friends are dissolving friendships over politics and whatever side you're on, Republican or Democrat or whatever it is. Who cares? Who cares? That is not important. What's important is that we all try to be decent to each other, that we try to correct the wrongs that are going on, and that we try to fix things and work together to fix these things instead of being separate. You know, what's going on right now and the divisiveness that we have here in the United States kind of reminds me back to when the Civil War was going on, when brothers turned on brothers and fathers turned on sons and families turned on each other over the slavery issues and stuff that we had going on. This is so much of a reminder of all that. We're doing it again. We're turning on each other. We're letting politicians divide us. It's ridiculous. There's no reason for this. We should all work together, and we should not be bullying each other, especially you people here in the rescue world. Quit it. Like I said, if you don't like something that another rescue is doing, fine. Unless you have information or proof that whatever they're doing is illegal or something like that, or they're abusing animals, someone along those lines, then call and get the authorities and stuff involved with it. Quit being armchair keyboard warriors and getting behind your screen and saying a bunch of crap and being mean. If you want to do that, then why don't you do it face to face, or do you not have enough bravery to do that? Other than that, just quit. Start doing these things and start thinking about other people. You don't know what's going on with other people, just like what happened with Michaela. Did anybody really have an inkling besides her really close friends and stuff like that and her family maybe about what was going on with her? Because I understand she kind of kept a lot of that hidden and put a pretty good face on things and tried to help other people with their autism and stuff like that as well. So seriously, guys, we've got to do better. Anyway, it was just horrible to hear about that, and I just wanted to talk about it. And I'm sorry if I kind of got on a soapbox and was scolding, but guys, we've got to do better. We're supposed to be on the top of the food chain, and we're supposed to be the smart ones. We're not acting very smart at all when it comes to any of this. Okay, so I'm going to get off of that topic, and my condolences go out to Michaela's family, her husband, her little daughter she left behind. Very sad to have heard about it. I guess I should explain, I did not know Michaela personally, but I did have one of her volunteers from Save a Fox had been on the podcast a few years ago, and we talked about Save a Fox and all the great work that they were doing, saving the foxes on the fur farms and stuff like that, and why they were helping those foxes out. So if you guys can donate and help keep continuing Michaela's mission with her husband Ethan and her daughter Freya, that would be awesome. So, all right, enough of that. And now, of course, guys, we've got July 4th coming up. For you guys that are here in the States listening in, we know this is going to go on. It happens every year. There's going to be fireworks going on. Take your dogs. Make sure they're inside. Don't leave them out in the yard while you go to the fireworks display. Put them inside. If you have to put them in, something to a crate, or if you have to put them in a kennel, something to try to keep them safe. What you need to do, turn that music on, turn that TV on, turn it up to try to help drown out the firework noise. Things to help with that. Get some medication from your vet if you need to help take the anxiety and the edge off when those things are going off. We know it happens every year. Make sure your dog has a microchip or has a collar and a tag on. And for God's sake, people, if your dog does get out on July 4th and ends up at animal control or the animal shelter, go get your dog. They don't want your dog. They more times give them back for free, because they are so overcrowded right now, they can't handle all the animals that they have. So please, please, please go get your dog. If it gets out, you're probably going to get it back for free. No one is going to yell at you about it. Well, they might say, maybe you should think about helping your dog and keep it in so it doesn't get freaked out. But that'll probably be about it. So please, make sure your dog's got ID. And if your dog gets out, make sure you check the local shelters, check around with your neighbors, because they might be holding on to your dog because the shelters are overfull. But get your dog and take it home. Can't stress this enough. It happens every year here in the United States, guys. We have fireworks. It's never going to stop. We celebrate our independence. I know so many people want it to stop, but it is probably never going to stop. Maybe it will in 100 years. Who knows? But come on. It's been going on now for how long? Let's be smart about this and keep our dogs safe. And if they get out, go get them and quit leaving them at the shelter. The shelters can't handle it. They're over full. They are euthanizing for space because they don't have room. So please, please, please do the right thing. Keep them safe and go pick them up if they get out. Okay, and I hope you all have a happy 4th of July. I hope you celebrate, but stay safe. Please do not drink and drive. Horrible accidents happen, when that kind of stuff happens. So please, make sure you stay safe. If you go out and celebrate, great, but either stay where you're at or, celebrate at home, whatever you need to do. Just don't be drinking and driving out there, guys. Okay, and with all of that being said, my next couple podcasts coming up, July 10th, I am going to be talking with Kim Langling, and she has, excuse me, a couple books out there. I'm just kind of calling them the Paw Prince books because that's what's in the title. It's oh my gosh, and I'm sorry guys, I forgot to grab her book, so I actually had the title real handy here. Hold on a second, and I can tell you what the name of it is. Let's see. I think one of them was Paw Prince in the Kitchen. And Nuggets of... Oh, here we go. Sorry about that, guys. I should have had that ready before I started doing this. I apologize. Paw Prince on the Couch. And then the other one is Paw Prince on the Kitchen Floor. That's why I was calling them the Paw Prince books. Anyway, I have read Paw Prince on the Couch. It was really good. I do intend to probably get Paw Prince on the Kitchen Floor, and I'm going to read that too because I did enjoy the first one. Kim has taken stories from different pet owners, and she's compiled them all into this book, and she's telling, their stories about their pets. And so we're going to be talking with her on July 10th about her books and get some more insight into them and how she got into writing these books about the pets and stuff and what got her going with that. So hopefully you guys can all tune in on July 10th and listen in on that one. And then on July 24th, I'm going to have Allison Brokaw on with me. And she's also an author and scientist and stuff. She's actually written a book, Fascinating Facts About Bats. And so we are going to be talking with Allison about all sorts of different bat things. So I'm actually just about halfway, I think, through her book right now. And it's a beautiful book, guys. If you guys are interested in bats, I would recommend getting it. It's got some beautiful, colorful pictures in there of bats and different bats and different, each chapter is about something different, and it's very well written, and it's very informative, and it has a lot of good, great information in there. So yeah, if you guys are interested in bats, I would highly recommend getting her book and taking a look at it and reading it. I'm enjoying it. And that's what my next couple of podcasts coming up are. So hopefully, like I said, you guys can come on back and listen to those, and we'll get some more information about these books and these authors. Well, thanks, guys, for sticking around a little extra time tonight and listening in on our podcast for the Skunks and about me getting on my little soapbox about bullying and stuff like that. But that just kind of, was upsetting and hit home. and 4th of July. All right, everybody, I'm out of here. You guys all have fun. Have a good weekend this weekend. Stay safe. And again, make sure you stay safe on the 4th of July. All right, bye now.
Having a life scholarship and being able to afford to go to college made me feel inspired to go.
When I got a life scholarship, it was such a relief.
I knew that I wanted to have an impact. Having a life scholarship through the SC Education Lottery was huge. It gave me the opportunity to make that impact right here at home.
The South Carolina Education Lottery. A better you, a better us, a better South Carolina. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.